Welcome to the podcast, Abby. I am so excited to talk to you today because you have such a wealth of experience in the financial industry, decades, and you're so passionate about women's financial empowerment. And that is something that I don't think we talk about enough. And women are just now starting to wake up to not only empowering themselves with their finances, but actually thinking long term and thinking about leaving a legacy. And we're going to dive into that too. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's such an honor to have somebody with your experience and your background join us for a conversation about such an important topic. So, can you share with listeners before we dive into all the juicy questions a little bit about your background and what you're doing?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I am a managing director at Lenox Advisors.
Mhm,
I've been in the financial services industry for 30 years, a little
mhm,
over 30 years. And I've seen it all. I've actually grown up with a lot of my clients, right?
mhm,
So where they were beginning in their accumulation phase of their life and working and building their family and having, all these savings and responsibilities and lifestyle creep, gets in the way and all these things. And then turning the corner into the distribution phase of their life where they're getting ready to retire and making sure that they're saving in certain kinds of buckets. Tax, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but I talk to my clients about, systematic saving and retirement and protecting themselves against a premature death or getting sick or injured, discussing long-term care needs, the sandwich years, of course, taking care of parents and children. And then I've also been in this industry long enough to round that corner to the preservation phase of people's lives and making sure that they're passing their assets to the next generation in a tax efficient manner in the way that they want.
mhm,
Um, it's a very rewarding career in that my goal and my firm's goal is to build relationships that matter and clients for life.
mhm,
And the industry itself has evolved so much. But what's wonderful about the financial planning industry is that you're constantly learning new things. And trust me, if you're ever in a rut, the tax laws change constantly. So you're always learning something. And that part I love as well, just continually to improve my brain and my knowledge.
mhm.
I find that the more knowledge that I have, the fiercer I am in my craft. And, I really love what I do. I am making a difference in people's lives and I'm relevant
Mhm.
to, I don't think that financial planners will ever be irrelevant.
Right.
So I'm blessed and I'm very grateful. I have wonderful teammates and a support system and clients, and so I feel very blessed
Mhm.
to have this.
Yeah, I think women are very blessed to have someone with your knowledge and your background to speak the language in a way that resonates with us about such an important topic because you pick up any financial book written from a male perspective, and I think that it doesn't hit the same. And so we need more women that are in that space saying, no, come with me. Let me show you how to empower yourself and, um, how we can begin to rewrite our stories if we don't have that financial background and we don't feel confident. So I would love to hear your thoughts on where we can begin to start having that financial confidence and begin to have that independence that we should have.
I love that you're talking about this because a while ago I had a client for 25 years pass away,
Mm,
and his wife called and she was hysterical crying. I was clearly her first call. And through her tears and her hysteria, she said that her husband made her remember my phone number in case anything happened to him. I was the first call. And I really, literally was. But something else happened on that call that I learned from. She was scared. She was confused. She was lost. And that was a wake-up call for me. Now, this client lived in another state, so I never really got to meet her. I only had the relationship with him. And oftentimes I do only meet with the male in the relationship.
Hmm.
And what happened was that I had to empower her. I had to give her language. I had to do a lot of things to just cocoon her into feeling confident about her finances. But it also made me realize that under no circumstances am I ever not going to include the significant other in a conversation anymore. Now, if that person doesn't want to get into the weeds, that's fine. But when I hear a male in particular say that their wives are not interested in the financial planning, I challenge that because I highly doubt that the wives that are home, who are homemakers, who are working at home, don't have a say in what happens if there's no money, what happens to the home, where would they want to live, how much money do they need. Don't tell me that they don't want to know that.
Right.
So I at least get to meet the significant other. I at least make sure that they know who I am, what my phone number is, but more importantly, what kind of resource I am to them. And they don't need to understand everything. They just need to understand what they have from a high level and that they're going to be okay,
Hmm.
right? A lot of people don't know that they're going to be okay because they never talk about it. And then when they realize that they're not okay is when it's too late. And that's not okay, right? So I have leaned into that quite a bit. And I am encouraging the men in my industry to lean into that also. And I'm encouraging my clients who are male to lean into that also, because it's not okay, not under my watch. And it's funny, I mentor a lot of my counterparts in the industry around the country, and a lot of the men say, they ask a question, does your wife work? Oh, you bet your butt she works. She works her tail off. She's just not earning a paycheck.
Hmm.
But I assure you, the job she has is really tough.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't realize that or give that same respect, and
Hmm.
it deserves it.
Hmm.
So I always phrase it, does your wife earn an income outside of the home?
Hmm.
Or does your wife work outside of the home? Now, a lot of people are working at home these days, so I switch it to, does your wife earn an income?
Hmm.
But it's not a degrading question, right? Like, does your wife work is a degrading question in my definition of questions. So that's how I have begun to empower women and to talk about finances and to make it okay to talk about it. And it's okay not to know,
Hmm.
but sticking your head in the sand is not an education.
Hmm.
And that's all it requires is just an education. You don't have to have a master's in it. You just need to know where things are, who to
Hmm.
call, what to do. In other words, you can get as weedy as you want,
Hmm.
but don't be excluded.
Hmm.
Get a seat at the table. You can choose after you have a seat at the table whether you want to stay there or not, but at least you're invited to the table.
Hmm.
That's been my mission.
Yeah, and I think just taking that step to educate yourself, I think it takes a lot of the fear out of the situation that we
1,000%.
anticipate. And I mean, as a military spouse, I didn't have that luxury. I mean, if my husband was going to be somewhere and I didn't know if he would come back to
Mm.
me, I had to educate myself. And so I've been so surprised when I talk to women who haven't had to face that situation, that real reality that they might be a single parent or they might not have a partner with them who earns the majority of the income or all of the income, to be there and help them make decisions. So I really love that you're advocating for women in that way and giving them permission
Yeah.
to take that seat at the table. That,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. I think fear stems from lack of knowledge. When you don't know about something, it is scary.
mm-hmm,
But fear is just a conversation you're having with yourself. It should not stop the process. It's
right,
okay to be afraid.
right,
But
right,
I think knowledge subsides that fear quite a bit,
right.
for sure. You
And
know?
one of the things too that I think lends to that fear is the fact that we anticipate, and we might be true about it, it might be an honest fear that when we start to have these conversations that we're not going to be on the same page as our partner. And there's going to be a little bit of a disagreement or a lot of disagreement. So, do you have any suggestions for ways where we can approach trying to have more financial harmony with our partners when it comes to finances?
Yeah, that is a loaded question, and I'll tell you why it's so loaded, because it stems from childhood.
Right.
It stems from the relationship that you've had with your parents growing up and how their relationship was with money.
Mm-hmm.
It's like bone deep.
Right.
And when you enter into a relationship and you enter into a commitment of marriage, you are basically inheriting your spouse's, I don't know the word for it, but you're inheriting their bias to um, their degree of understanding of money, the responsibility of money, the accountability of money. And a lot of times I always ask the question with my clients when I'm in a discovery meeting, tell me about how you were raised growing up with your parents with money. Like, what did money mean to your parents? Like, how did you ever talk about it? Were there discussions of, discussions about savings, retirement? Were there any conversations? And 9 times out of 10, people say no, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, in fact, you hear the conversation of money is taboo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not for nothing, but I do believe that most divorces are because of financial issues,
Mm.
right? So it's imperative that if you're entering into that lifelong commitment with someone, that you understand um, their 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 philosophies on money and how they want to raise children, and discussing money, what their saving habits are, what their spending habits are, what their consumption rate is. Like, all of these things affect a marriage.
Yeah.
And so not talking about it, I don't know, it seems to me as important as not talking about your feelings,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah. So that's the first thing that I ask and to try and wrap my head around is, what does money mean to people? Why is money important to you? And that question is an ongoing question, because some people could say, well, money gives me security. Okay, why is security important to you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because, I don't need to worry. It lowers my stress levels. I have more freedom. Okay, what does freedom mean to you? Like, describe that to me.
Mm-hmm.
So we get very deep,
Mm-hmm.
because I really, really want to understand. I want to get under the hood with how people feel about money and how they talk about it or don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I just get them to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they start talking about it, I think they realize it's not such a bad topic after all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of enlightening.
Mm-hmm.
I give my clients a lot of tools for talking around the dinner table about money.
Mm.
My husband and I talked about money all the time around the dinner table. So my kids were used to discussing money. Um, I remember when they were bar and bat mitzvahed,
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of hell bent against having one, because a lot of the reputation surround that is, oh, well, how much money did you get?
Mm.
And that really turned me off.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to my children, I go, I'm not not doing about like we're not doing it. And my husband is not Jewish, and he was proud of our heritage and wanted to get them bar and bat mitzvahs. So we did. And I said, fine, if we do that, then we're going to do it my way. And they're not going to even know that we're having a party for them.
Mm-hmm.
And all the money is going to charity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my children were very on board with that, and they chose a charity of their choice. We went, we visited, we interviewed. They really dug deep with that. They were connected to um, the 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 cause. And when we were going through their monetary gifts, they were excited about who had more money to give away.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this huge lesson in philanthropy for them,
Mm-hmm.
because a bar and bat mitzvah, just not to get religious or anything, but it's about stepping up in your community.
Mm-hmm.
You're not necessarily an adult at 13, but your commitment to the community and stepping up, that's what's expected of you. And so I thought that was the ultimate
Mm-hmm.
stepping up for your community. And they felt it, and they delivered their checks personally to the organizations. And it was it was a monumentous moment
Mm-hmm.
of clarity surrounding what money can do
Mm-hmm.
and the power of philanthropy and the power of giving that away,
Mm-hmm.
was pretty powerful for my children. So that was a lesson there. And it was a big one, clearly,
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't, $5. It was a lot of money.
Right.
So that was really cool that we did that. Um, I got lost in the question because I started talking about this. I'm so sorry. What was the question?
That's okay. Yeah, and I think that you did answer the question, at least to a certain degree, in that I was curious your tips for creating that harmony in a relationship around money.
Yeah.
And I think a small part of that you're saying is to make it a family affair and not to make it something that, is hush hush, that is out in the open and that you talk about pretty freely. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of little things that we talk with regard to money. For example, we believed that it was important for them to have an allowance. Now,
mhm,
it started very young and it wasn't a lot of money, but we
mhm,
gave them a piggy bank that had different slots, one for savings, one for spending, one for charity, um, and one for investment.
mhm,
And we gave them a set amount of dollars, and it was not tied to chores.
mhm,
I felt very strongly, both my husband and I felt very strongly not to have money tied to doing something that you're supposed to be doing already within a community,
mhm,
like taking out the garbage or doing your laundry or cleaning up after yourselves. These things, children, their first exposure to any community is within the home.
mhm,
So if they're not doing these things as part of the community, but they only do them when they get paid, it just seemed to cross wires.
mhm,
I wanted them to realize that money wasn't tied to doing good deeds. You do good deeds because you're a good person and you're part of that community. But they needed to learn how to budget the money. They needed to understand what money does. They needed to understand the use of the dollar, what it buys, what it doesn't buy, how to save it, how to spend it, all of these things.
mhm,
And you start at a very young age.
mhm,
And by the time they got into high school, we gave them a project. We said, we're going to go on a family vacation. Here's the budget. You guys need to figure out where we're going, how we're getting there, what we're doing once we're there. And here's your budget. Give us 3 proposals and we'll decide as a family what to do. And they did. And let me tell you, it was the most incredible family vacation because my husband and I just showed up and they were in charge of everything. And what it taught them was this is really important. What it taught them was to work together
mhm,
with a budget.
mhm,
They're going to go into the real world and they're going to have their own families where they need to work with their partner
mhm,
with the budget, right? They need to understand what the money can buy, what is a ripoff, what's not a ripoff. All of these things, the little innuendos about planning a family trip, it is extraordinary to me now that I see them and they're adulting and they're 20, almost 24 years old. They're adulting and I'm watching them and how they're saving and how they're spending and how they're investing and how they're doing all these things with credit cards, which is the best points and which is this, and they talk to each other all the time about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that stemmed from all of these little things that we did when we were
Mm-hmm.
raising them. And it was so, so important for us to instill this sense of confidence surrounding money,
Mm-hmm.
um, and not to take that for granted,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a privilege.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I mean, it's definitely a family affair. And it's like, and I don't think that you can pass that down to your family, your children, until you kind of do that work on yourself. And I think you have such a unique perspective in trying to understand your clients' experience with money and how they create their ideas around money, because that is so important on how we handle it now as adults. And so I think that that's a unique perspective that probably you bring as a woman. I don't know how many male financial advisors ask, so how was your childhood about money? So I love that. And I think it's so important. And you
But
brought up, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry to interrupt you, but isn't that interesting that not a lot of people ask that question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But everyone's behavior stems from that.
Right. Yeah.
It's so interesting to me that nobody asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, okay, go ahead.
No, I think it's brilliant and it's absolutely true. And on my journey as an entrepreneur, it was one of the first things that I had to kind of deal with myself. It's like if you start a business to earn money and to earn more money, at some point you're going to hit a ceiling if you have certain limiting beliefs about what you deserve and what you think your worth is and all of those things. So I think it's a really fundamental thing that we need to address as women and certainly as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Um, and you touched on one thing too that many in my generation are beginning to deal with, and that's the sandwich years.
Mm.
And when we have aging parents and we also have children that we're still taking care of, and we're trying to run our businesses and do all the things. So, how can we prepare financially and maybe you even have a perspective on emotionally, how we can begin to start to deal with these years?
Well, it's called long-term care.
Right.
And longevity has now become one of those risks that are out there. It didn't used to exist years ago, but it exists now. Longevity is a problem.
Mm,
And people are not living necessarily a healthful life, but they're living a long life and they
mm,
get sick and they get injured, or, they have one of the four horsemen come and visit them. You know what those are?
yep.
Cancer, diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia,
Mm-hmm.
you name it. And my father had three of them:
Mm,
cancer, diabetes, heart disease. And he died of cancer, died of pancreatic cancer.
mm-hmm.
Um, but before he had all these ailments, and when he was younger, my husband and I bought life insurance on him,
Mm-hmm.
long-term care insurance on him,
Mm-hmm.
and disability insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, when he first got his heart attack at 53, that disability insurance kicked in and gave him an income. When he was dying and we needed to care for him,
Mm-hmm.
typically what happens among siblings is that the one that is earning the most money takes care of everything
Mm-hmm.
financially. The sibling that lives the closest usually takes the physical burden. So you have roles that siblings play, especially if they're all over the country. My sibling happened to be lived near there,
Mm-hmm.
but she had children of her own and she wasn't in a financial position to financially take care of my parents with regard to help. So it fell on me.
Mhm.
And I was always also traveling back and forth. And the amount of money that I spent just on travel alone was outrageous. But interestingly enough, the long-term care policy paid out and helped financially with, having somebody there 24/7 because it was horrific for my mom. She couldn't sleep at all, and it was just really bad. And families go through that. And if you don't have money to hire someone to come in and help you, it can financially devastate a family. So
Mhm.
it's imperative to buy long-term care insurance
Mhm.
and life insurance, because when they die, that death benefit is there to replace all the money that you spent while he was alive or they were alive. And so all of these things come into play. All of these financial instruments come into play.
Mhm.
And I say financial instruments because that's exactly what they are. They're unique products that are paid exactly when they're needed.
Mhm.
They're not tied to the markets.
Mhm.
They're not taxed. So life insurance, long-term care insurance, disability insurance, I cannot stress enough how important that is to make sure you have that foundation covered. Check your beneficiary designations, make sure they're all correct. You'd be surprised. Open enrollment is now taking place for many companies. Check to make sure that your beneficiaries are correct in the retirement section. I can't tell you how many times they are not correct or not chosen at all. And what happens is everything goes to probate, and then your estate is probated, and it could take months to settle. So all of these things are easy. These are the easy things, right? You call a person like me, and
Mhm.
I walk you through all of these things. I help you walk you through, because not everybody knows to do this. Not every people are too busy. They just don't do it. And it causes a major lack of coordination on your planning, lack of coordination on on the financial planning, and hence it could really wreak havoc for families if they don't prepare for those needs, because they are very expensive. Getting
Mhm.
sick or injured is very expensive. Taking care of someone is very time consuming and expensive. And the time to think about these kinds of products are when you don't need them, right?
Right.
And
Mhm.
when you are healthy and young,
Mhm.
that is the best time.
Mhm.
Cannot wait until you're 70, 80 years old
Yeah.
to put a policy on something. You cannot do that. If your parents are in their 50s, 60s, make sure you're discussing these, because at the end of the day, when your parent is in a long-term care need, it means that they need assistance with
Mhm.
two of the six daily activities of living. Now, there are people who say, take me in the back and shoot me, because if I can't do two of the six daily activities of living, I don't want to live anymore. But
Mhm.
then you have a whole population who does not think that way,
Right.
and they wind up in a home,
Right.
where they wind up with a spouse having to quit their job and take care of them 24/7. I mean, it's really bad.
Mhm.
I mean, I think my husband and I would get divorced if I had to take care of his mother 24/7. I mean, let's be honest,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not okay. So, um, these things need to be discussed early.
Mhm. Yeah.
And as afraid as you are to have these conversations, I assure you, it is far less painful to have them when you can do something about it versus when you can't.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it's so important, and that's why I just love that we're having this conversation, because I hope who needs to hear this right now is listening, and this is their wake up call if they don't have a plan in place and they don't know whether they're going to be okay, you know, long term, not just thinking short term. And so um, I know we're coming up a little bit against time, and there's so much more I would love to talk to you about, but I really think it's important to also not only just think about our immediate financial needs and also taking care of our families, but also the idea of leaving a legacy.
Mhm.
So, can you touch on that a bit? Because I think that's so important. We need to plant the seeds for that.
Well, there are a lot of people out there that don't want to leave anything to their children.
Right.
And there are a lot of people that want to leave a lot to their children. But we're talking about something different. We're talking about money.
Mm-hmm.
But you said legacy, and legacy can mean many different things. Um, you have the power while you're alive to create memories and how you want to be remembered. And in the vein of what we're talking about, would you rather your family be pissed off at you when you're alive or pissed off at you when you're dead? Well, my answer is I'd much rather than be pissed off at me when I'm alive, because when I'm dead, I can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so legacy becomes very important. How do you want to be remembered? You know, there's a wonderful story. I don't know if you know this or not, but do you know Albert Nobel invented dynamite?
Mm-hmm.
And he had a twin brother, Ludwig. And Ludwig passed away. And one morning, Albert, after he passed away, was looking at a French newspaper and he almost choked on his biscuit when he saw the title. It said, Master of uh, uh, Merchant of Death. That's what it was called, the Merchant of Death. And the whole obituary was about how he invented dynamite and, you know, destroyed and murdered people. And he was horrified
Mm-hmm.
of this legacy. So he decided to take all of his wealth and endow the Peace Prize. So today, he's known for the Nobel Peace Prize. And I just think that that story just is just the epitome of legacy and
Mm-hmm.
how you can turn it and how you can create a legacy for in perpetuity
Mm-hmm.
by planning, by communicating your plans
Mm-hmm.
and telling people how much you love them and why you love them and what you've done for them. And that needs to happen while you're alive.
Yeah.
And making sure everything is correct needs to happen when you're alive.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not correct and then you die, you're SOL. And then you've got people that are really pissed off at you, and that's not okay.
Yeah, I've seen that play out, and it leaves a lot of unfinished business, and it leaves a lot of people aren't living their lives. They're living in the past because things aren't cleared up. And so I think that's a wonderful reminder. And, you know, these are difficult conversations, but they're just conversations, right?
Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that because I have been talking about death and disability and long-term care for 30 years. You know, I have no problem talking about it because I planned for it, right?
Right.
Plan for living a long life and retirement and what happens if I'm not like I talk about it all the time. So for
Mhm.
me, it's kind of like a doctor saying get undressed, right? It's like it's
Whatever.
comfortable. It's comfortable for me,
Right.
I guess. But it needs to be a comfortable conversation because
Hmm.
it's really, really uncomfortable for everyone that you left behind.
Yeah.
So it's okay to be uncomfortable. Maybe
Hmm.
people need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And maybe that's what they need to be remembered by, you know, to make doing things the right way, making sure things are right, crossing T's, dotting your I's, making sure that you've covered all the bases.
Hmm.
And that's how a lot of people show their love,
Right.
you know, making sure things are in order.
Hmm.
So important.
You've shared so many great tips and stories and given us so much to think about already. But if you had a takeaway or a few takeaways that you want to leave with listeners, what would that be?
If you're listening to this podcast, do something. If you don't know who to call, you can call me. I've had several reach outs from across the country and have built wonderful relationships with those people, and they feel empowered, they feel organized, they feel like they're on track, and they're happy. And for your listeners out there, they should feel that way. And if they're not, they should do something about it and decide. At
Mhm.
the end of the day, decide. And fear is just a conversation you're having with yourself.
Mhm.
And if somebody else is afraid, then I assure you, if you're afraid, I assure you somebody else is afraid too. And it's okay to talk about it, because if you say you're afraid, it loses its power.
Mhm.
It just loses its
Mhm.
power somehow.
Mhm.
It's okay to be afraid. It means
Yeah,
you're ready.
I love that. And I think that there is we struggle, especially as women and moms, asking for help because we think we're supposed to know all of the answers, and we fear admitting when we don't. But it's really a short distance between fear and some knowledge that can take away a lot of that fear. And so, where can listeners reach out to you and connect with you, so if they're having fear around this conversation, they can start to get rid of that fear?
Yes, absolutely. I'm reachable at, my email is usually best, a large
Hmm.
at lenoxadvisors.com. And that's Lenox, Lenox, one N, advisors, advisors.com. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or they can go to our website, lenoxadvisors.com, and they can find me there. Either way, email is usually best.
I love that. And I'll leave that in the show notes as well.
Terrific.
Yeah. Thank
Terrific.
you so much for joining us today and just giving us a permission to have this conversation and empower ourselves around our finances and to think long term and to get rid of that fear. I love that. I think it's so powerful.
Thank you. Thank you. I do want to add one little thing. Um, I once asked my older daughter this question, and her answer, I think, was really empowering. So I want to share it with your listeners. I asked, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail at anything? And her response was, I wouldn't get very far. The point of that is you're going to fail, and it's okay to fail. There's a huge difference between failing and being a failure. You would never advance if you didn't fail. You would never learn if you didn't fail. It's okay to fail. So don't fail, just get up and move forward and learn. And I hope that your listeners understand that, because the fear, um, they might feel like they're failing at something, but it's okay. They're not. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
Just move, decide and move. And
right.
that's, I'll leave it at that.
I love that. And I think that that's just such an important muscle to have as an entrepreneur and as a mom.
Yeah.
We don't get guidebooks. We have to keep showing up every day because we know the stakes are very high. And I think we pass down, the inner work that we do, the the things that we give ourselves permission to fail at. We pass that down. And so our children don't have to make those same mistakes or have those same experiences. So that in part is our legacy as well, like we were talking about. So
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if they choose not to listen to you and they decide to do it on their own, by all means, you learn the hard way.
right. Good luck with that.
Good luck with that.
Right. No, there's
It-
so much value and wisdom in having and just somebody who has that experience on your side.
True. There's nothing like experience.
Yeah, there is.
Nothing like it. Yeah, I agree. This conversation has been wonderful. I could clearly
Yeah,
go on and on, but
I know, I could
I know in the
too.
interest of time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time and your sharing all of your insights and wisdom with us today, Abby. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.